Hello, I'm Eve from the University of Pennsylvania's English Language Programs, and today we're talking about the Duolingo English Test, the DET. In this video, we're going to talk about the question type read, then write. First, we'll look at an example of the read, then write question type. Then we'll talk about how this question is evaluated. And finally, we'll talk about tips and strategies for the read, then write question type, including timing, content, and structure. First, let's look at an example of the read, then write question type. You have 5 minutes for this task, which for some people may seem like a long time and for others might seem way too short. The directions for this task are simple. Respond to the question in at least 50 words. On the left, you can see the prompt, or the question you're being asked. And on the right, you can see a text box where you can type your response. Finally, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a button that says Next, which you should only click when you're done writing, have reread your response to check for edits, and you're ready to submit your answer. Unlike other question types, you only see this type of question once on the exam. Now let's talk about how it's evaluated. It's important to remember that this is a test that measures your academic use of English. So while it says at least 50 words, to be successful in this task, you should be writing in full sentences. And I would argue that with 5 whole minutes, you should try to write a connected paragraph of maybe 100 to 150 words. Let's talk about the way it's evaluated. The first is content. And here, content means, did your response answer the question? In this example, describe a time that you were surprised. What happened? You should stick to a personal experience. You should tell a story about something that happened to you that you didn't expect. Next is cohesion. And it's important for this type of task. Cohesion, we want to see connectors within your response to show how the sentences and ideas are related to one another. Next, I'm sure it's no surprise that grammatical accuracy and complexity is part of the evaluation of this task. Yes, the frequency of mistakes is important, but this also means range or variety in structures. It also wants to see how accurately these structures are punctuated. Additionally, it's a good idea to show off your vocabulary in this writing task. A range and lexical resource, including specific or sophisticated words, as well as accuracy in spelling, is important. And finally, length is taken into consideration, which means they want to know how much you can produce sentence-wise and word-wise within that time limit of 5 minutes. Your performance on this task is included in the subscores of production and literacy. Now let's talk about ways to prepare for the read, then write type of question. We're going to talk about timing, content, and structure. Let's first look at timing. It's important to know what 5 minutes feels like when you're writing, especially if you're typing in a second language. For some test takers, 5 minutes can feel like 5 hours, and for others, it's going to feel like 5 seconds. So it's important not to be rattled or stressed out by the time constraint of this question. And one way to do that is to practice timed typing. For this writing task, you're going to be asked a question that will require you to do one of 3 things. Recount or remember an experience, describe or explain something in details, or make an argument. So for the content, it's important to know what type of prompt you're being asked. Here are 3 example prompts, and see if you can tell which one is the example of a recount, which one is the example of a description, and which one is the example of an argument. So first, do you think kids should study art and music at school? What was one event when someone was treated unfairly? And talk about a country which is in economic trouble. Give reasons for the issue and possible solutions. Pause the video now to decide which prompt represents recount, describe, or make an argument. Okay, here are the right answers. In each of these question types, you as the writer are being asked to do something different. So practicing how to answer each question type will help you be successful in the content part of the scoring. Finally, let's talk about structure. After you determine the question type, it's important to structure your response, which will add to the coherence of your writing. Again, it says at least 50 words, but for many of the scoring criteria, sentence structure and connectedness is vital. Because of the time constraints, I'd recommend practicing this structure. An introduction sentence, which refers to the prompt, offers an opinion, and outlines the paragraph. Then follow up with 2 main ideas connected with transitions. And finally, an ending sentence to rephrase the prompt, but also make it clear that this is the end of your paragraph. Here's an example. In general, people are living longer today. Discuss some of the implications of this phenomenon. First, what content type is this? Is this recount, describe, or make an argument? This is a description question because it's asking us to identify and add details about the implications of an event or the possible effects. Let's continue with this example to use our structure. So here's a possible introduction sentence. Due to advances in modern medicine, people in many places of the world are living longer than previous generations, and this has 2 main implications for society. Remember, a topic sentence should refer to the prompt, offer an opinion, and outline the paragraph. Did this sentence do this? Yeah, we can see that the first part of the sentence is showing the author's opinion on why people are living longer. The second part of the sentence, it rephrases or refers to the original question, and then the last part shows the reader what to expect in the following questions. Now, let's look at the 2 main ideas. Firstly, if people are living longer, we could experience housing shortages. Governments need to think about what types of housing are best for the aging population. The second implication is that people may wait to retire. If people are living longer, they may choose to work longer and save money for retirement. Do we see 2 ideas here with transitions? Absolutely. We can see how these sentences relate to each other because of the transitions, and they present 2 clear and different ideas. Finally, let's look at the ending sentence. People living longer can have both positive and negative effects on society, and governments should adjust laws and services to plan for this change. Remember, we want the ending sentence to rephrase the question, but also provide a clear ending. Does this one do that? Yeah. We can see that it's similar to the introduction sentence in the sense that it has a reference to the prompt, but by providing an action in the second part of that sentence, that should statement, it's a clear ending. These are just a few strategies to help you when you're faced with the read, then write question type. Remember, you can practice more with this type of question and other types of questions on the DET website. Thanks for checking out this video about the DET question type read, then write, and you can find more videos like this one on the Penn ELP YouTube channel.